very interesting way to make a movie. As of 2 weeks ago, I decided to go on this site called Putlocker, and from there, I watched this movie called The Blair Witch...
We've got a witch!
The Blair Witch...
Burn already!
The Blair Witch...
Throw her into the pole!
Blair.
A witch! A witch!
Will you shut up?!
Sorry.
The Blair Witch Project. This movie is part of a horror film genre that we call found footage. And basically what that is it's supposed to be a movie that's through the perspective of a handheld video camera. You know, like the old cassette tape video cameras or an iPhone even. Yeah, basically it's supposed to act like this was footage that was found explaining a disaster that has happened in the past. Now, we all know that it's fiction, but it's the kind of movie that it kind of makes the audience feel as if it's the real deal, you know? In fact, the Blair Witch Project was what founded the entire found footage genre, which later inspired other movies like The Paranormal Activity. The movie is about 3 college kids, at least I'm pretty sure they're college kids, named Heather, Mike, and Josh. And together, they go to this forest somewhere in Maryland, where they decide to do a little documentary about some myth called the Blair Witch. And they decided to call this documentary The Blair Witch Project. Emphasis the name of the movie. And, well, they find a few interesting folk, and with some interesting stories in Maryland. In fact, there was this one old guy who talked about a hermit from, I think it was either during the 1940s or the 1950s. I forgot exactly when, but this hermit had abducted a bunch of kids and made them stare at a wall. And apparently he killed them because the Blair Witch told him to. Yeah, very interesting stories indeed. And they also met this old woman who claimed to have met this Blair Witch in person. And she's a little cuckoo in the head, obviously. Or is she? Well, I don't know. Considering the fact that she described this Blair Witch as looking like a furry, hairy beast. Are you sure she's not talking about Bigfoot? So yeah, as they're wandering all over town, they learn about all these disappearances of children back in all these years, like the 1940s, 1950s, the 1960s, and so forth. And there was also this story about this woman who was mistaken for someone who was responsible for the disappearances of children, and she became the Blair Witch. Yeah, yeah, she's this spiritual monster roaming around this forest in Maryland, which is very interesting because my granddaddy once told me about this forest somewhere in Maryland. It is said to be haunted. In fact, no squirrel ever goes in that forest. Yeah, every single squirrel just avoids that place. Very interesting. And so they go in the forest, and they meet a couple of fishermen, whom they ask questions about the Blair Witch. One of the fishermen is very skeptical about it, while the other one sounds like he believes the story of the Blair Witch. I'm not sure which one to listen to, the skeptical one or the crazy one. Sometimes, in movies like these, you should always listen to the crazy one. I know that sounds silly, but yeah, in some of these movies, the crazy person is telling the truth. Well, they decide to go deeper into the forest anyway. You know, every horror movie has to have its victims. And they go to this place where it was once reported that there were like 3 or 4 dead bodies of people who were sacrificed. Okay. And apparently those bodies just disappeared. Like they were never there before. Well, as you can see over there, this is where there were other people being sacrificed by a cult of crazy squirrels. And don't ask where they got the nuts from. It's best you don't know. It's a very dark tale. They then come across this old cemetery with stones all over the place. You know, cairns, or however you pronounce that word. One of the guys messes up the rock pile. And Heather just remembered that the crazy old lady that they met earlier was quoting some verse from the Bible. I don't know if it's a verse from the Bible, but it has something to do with not disturbing the dead. Well, I can't say for certain if messing up one of the rock piles was what triggered the Blair Witch into haunting them. I honestly can't say. However, what I can say is there is this disturbing phenomenon that they come across like almost every night. You know, when they would go to sleep in their tent, they decide to make camp. They go to sleep in their tent and they hear footsteps walking on twigs and leaves and branches, and yet they can't seem to figure out where it's coming from. And it's happening all around them. Yeah, all the sounds. And they keep thinking, maybe it's just a deer or some other animal. No. They can't seem to figure it out. In fact, the first night it happens, Mike has his headphones on. He's like, I can't hear anything anymore. Well, gee, maybe you can't hear anything anymore because you have your headphones on. Take your headphones off! I just love people who have to constantly listen to their headphones on high volume. And they wonder why they can't hear other people speaking to them. They even tried to find their way through the forest using a map. Of course, Heather is like, no, I know exactly where we're going. Oh, sounds so certain, don't we? Well, here's the catch. They keep wandering around the forest, and for some reason, they find themselves going around a circle, or they backtrack to a place they've already been to, you know? And, turns out, Mike decides to go all crazy, and, he throws the map away. Yeah, they lose the map. And they don't figure it out until later. In fact, they decide to blame each other until one of them decides to confess about losing the map. Yeah. Oh, and, what is up with Mike constantly using the F word? Stop using the F word! I mean, really! You kids need Jesus. Okay, yeah, you need him so badly right now. In fact, here's another thing that's interesting about this movie. You know how, in most horror films, it's the female character who's always freaking out? Well, except for Ellen Ripley in Alien, okay? When she goes afraid, it's perfectly reasonable. Of course, I can't say the same about that other female character, Lambert. You know how most horror films are like that? You know, that the woman is always, I'm so hopeless! Oh! Well, this movie kind of acts like there's a gender swap going on. Yeah, turns out it's the guys who are freaking out. Yeah, like, wow. That's the first time I've ever seen something like that in a horror movie. Yeah. Fancy that. Heather still uses her camera, despite everything that's going on. So, of course, the guys are like, okay, come on, Heather, give me the camera, give me the camera, give me the camera, give me the camera, give me the camera! Yeah, they're definitely creeping out. In fact, their time in the forest slowly drives the teenagers crazy. Crazy with fear. And they realize that no matter which direction they take in the forest, they end up in a place that they were standing at previously. Yeah, which means even if they did have the map with them, it would have been useless. Yeah, and they can't figure out why this sort of thing is happening. Well, they also come across this creepy area in the forest where attached to the trees, there's this weird voodoo-like thing going on. There's all these wooden stick figure dolls hanging about the trees. Creepy indeed. Mm-hmm. Well, the next time they decide to set camp, they're lying in the tent, and instead of what they heard previously, you know, all the footsteps on the twigs and leaves, it just got even creepier. They started hearing voices of crying babies and giggling little kids. And the boys, even Heather herself, is like, oh no, what is that noise? What is it? Yeah, I can understand nothing like that being creepy, especially in the middle of a forest that's so haunting. In fact, something decides to play havoc with the tent. Yeah, which causes the kids to run out of the tent and hide somewhere in the forest until daylight. And then they went back to the campsite and they find it all wrecked. And Josh finds his camera covered in blue slime of some sort. What, did the Blair Witch sneeze on it? Still lost in the forest and reaching an agreement saying that they don't want to be in it anymore, they decide to head south. Well, as they're going south, they realize that, wait, this is impossible. How can we be back here? Yeah. Like I said earlier, they keep ending up in a place that they've been at before. Yeah, like they cannot leave the forest. Like they're just trapped inside the forest. And I can tell you that we squirrels are trained to memorize landmarks. In fact, Josh points out, no, Heather, it's the same tree that we've crossed before. It's the same one. Well, as a squirrel memorizing landmarks, I can definitely tell you that he's right. That is the same tree. And this is when Heather truly begins to lose it. Just like the boys themselves. Yeah, they all lose it. In fact, Josh gets the worst of it. And, oh yeah, they run out of cigarettes, which, you really should not be smoking, kids. Really, smoking is bad for you, and so is vaping, believe it or not. And, yeah, they tried to comfort Josh, tried to get him to relax. And then, in the next morning, they discovered Josh is gone. See, it's like he vanished. Where is he? And so they tried to look for him, but no luck. And then the next night, they start hearing Josh's dying screams. Okay, okay, something tells me you're not alone in the forest. Well, they can't seem to figure out where Josh is. Now, in fact, they then convince themselves, oh, maybe it's not Josh. It's this forest. It's playing with our minds. Oh. In the morning, Heather finds something that's covered in sticks and twigs, and she opens it and discovers, oh, what's left of Josh. Yeah, his blood, his teeth, his hair, and bits of his clothes. I think we all know that Josh is dead. But here's the, here's what does not make any sense. Why does she not mention any of it to Mike? No, she keeps it all hidden from Mike. Like, hello? Maybe you should tell him. Tell him that his best friend is dead. That way, in their last evening together, they wouldn't go following Josh's voice, thinking, oh, we're coming to help you. If Mike was told that Josh was dead, they wouldn't have fallen for it. But no. But, yeah, Heather freaks out, Mike freaks out, and then they come across this house. Like, wait a minute, we didn't see that before. What's it doing there? Yeah, they come across this house. They try to follow Josh's voice. Mike is the first to go downstairs. Who knows what happens to him? In fact, Heather finds him staring at a wall. Okay, what is it with staring at walls? And, oh yeah, you want to know how the movie ends? Yep. That's how this movie ends. Everyone is dead. Everyone. And that is something to expect in a horror movie. Yeah. Yeah, you'll notice that almost every horror movie out there does not have a good nor happy ending. In fact, That seems to be one of the very things that people complain about, even though it is something that has become so commonplace. In fact, the Blair Witch franchise is constantly being argued because in none of the Blair Witch titles, they're survivors or people who make it out with their sanity still intact. Yeah, I mean, really, in this movie, everyone is dead. And in that sequel that I really do not want to be talking about, called Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2, everyone goes crazy, and one of them dies. And that other sequel, Blair Witch, everyone dies. And in that video game that came out sometime this year called Blair Witch, everyone is dead, yeah, depending on which ending you pick in that game. Yeah, lead character is either dead or goes crazy. But, yeah, that's Blair Witch in a nutshell. I mean, I'm not upset about it at all because, well, that's something to expect in every horror title. I mean, what, you expect a good ending to come out of it? I mean, and here's the thing, you all expected the Blair Witch video game to have a good ending? That's like saying that the Friday the 13th remake from 2009 had a good ending. Oh, it's okay. He was just giving her a hug, that's all. And one scene I left out was when Heather decided to take a dump on the corpse of a dead mouse. I am so glad I never showed Buttons that. In fact, I'm glad I never showed this movie because he would have been terrified by it. Yeah, he's too young for that movie. But that one scene I'm so glad he never saw. You millennials can be so cruel! You would be playing a video game like Until Dawn, and you would pick the option to shoot the squirrel! I mean, really? My owner has more dignity than you! I'm not going to say that this movie is good or bad. I'm just going to stick with saying that it's interesting. Yeah, a very interesting movie. It really does make you feel as if it's a real thing, but at the same time, you know it's fiction. Obviously. Since the actors in that movie are playing as themselves. Or as their fictional selves. Yeah, fictional versions of themselves. Yeah, it's one of those movies. Not bad, I mean, just, but yeah, like every other horror movie, it does not have a good ending. I mean, even Friday the 13th, that movie I just mentioned, yeah, that does not have a good ending. In fact, I don't think any of the Friday the 13th movies have good endings to them. I know that Nightmare on Elm Street does not have a good ending. And obviously Halloween does not have a good ending because, oh yeah, Michael Myers is still alive. Yeah. But that's the Blair Witch Project. Do stay away from that forest in Maryland that I just mentioned. It's probably not a Blair Witch that's haunting it, but that place is believed to be cursed. Yes, it is cursed. No squirrel ever goes there, which means no human should ever go there either. Just stay away from that place. If you value your life so greatly, you will stay away from that haunted forest. I think I said enough now. I'll probably be working on a review for Gears of War. Oh yeah. Now there's a video game I like to talk about. But that'll be for another time. Thank you all for watching, and as always, be sure to hit the subscribe button.